You are listening to HOA Busted. One missing page turned into a whole cover-up. You are going to respect the notice, Brenda said, and she pointed at the email printout like it was a subpoena. I was standing on my own driveway under the eave because the drizzle had started 5 minutes ago, and she was holding a clipboard with a violation notice clipped to it, waving it in my face. The cottages at Willow Glen Village Association had sent me 3 notices in 2 weeks, each one contradicting the last, and now Brenda Clark, social committee chair and self-appointed enforcement officer, was here in person to make sure I understood the consequences. I work as an insurance claims adjuster, so I document everything, and I already had my phone recording in my pocket. The landscaping contractor was trimming hedges 2 doors down, pretending not to listen, but I saw him glance over every few seconds. The problem started 3 weeks ago when I got an email saying my trash bins were visible from the street after collection hours. I pulled them in that afternoon and replied with a time-stamped photo. 2 days later, a second email arrived saying the photo was not acceptable proof and I needed to submit a signed compliance form. I filled out the form, scanned it, uploaded it to the portal, and got a confirmation receipt. Then last week, a third notice showed up in my mailbox, this time in a certified letter envelope with dirt-smudged corners, saying I had failed to respond and owed a $50 fine plus a $20 processing fee. The letter was dated 4 days before the portal upload, which made no sense because I had the portal timestamp. I called the management company, and they said the board was handling enforcement directly now and I needed to take it up with them. Brenda tapped the clipboard with her knuckle. "This conversation is not a debate. It is a directive," she said. "You owe $70, and if you do not pay by Friday, we will send it to collections." I kept my voice level. "I already complied. I have the receipt." She rolled her eyes. "I do not need proof. I have paperwork and vibes." The contractor stopped trimming and stared. I did not react because my job is on the line with all this chaos, and I needed to stay controlled. My insurance work requires me to be on call at odd hours, and the HOA drama had already cost me 2 nights of sleep and 1 missed deadline because I was dealing with notices instead of claims files. I pulled out my phone and opened the portal screenshot. "Here is the confirmation from the upload," I said, holding the screen toward her. She waved it away without looking. "The portal is down, and we are not accepting electronic submissions right now. You need to deliver paper proof in person today." I blinked. The portal was working fine an hour ago. She shrugged. "Board decision. New policy." I could feel my pulse in my temples. "What address do I deliver it to?" She gave me the management office address, then added, "You have until 5 p.m., and if you are late, the fine doubles." The contractor walked over, hedge trimmer still in hand, and asked Brenda if she needed help with anything. She ignored him and turned back to me. "One more thing," she said, pulling a plastic evidence sleeve from her blazer pocket and waving it like it was a smoking gun. "We have documentation that you violated the guest parking rule last month." I froze. "I do not have guests. I live alone." She smiled. "We have a complaint on file." I could feel the trap closing. Whoever filed that complaint either lied or mistook my car for someone else's, but Brenda was acting like it was already proven. The contractor cleared his throat and said, "Ma'am, I think he is trying to comply." She snapped at him. "This does not concern you." He backed off, but he kept watching. I asked Brenda for a copy of the complaint. She said it was confidential. I asked for the date of the alleged violation. She said she would check and get back to me. I asked who filed it. She said that was also confidential. The contractor shook his head and walked away. I told Brenda I would deliver the compliance paperwork to the office by 5, and she said, "Good, because this is your last chance." Then she turned and walked to her car, a blue sedan with an HOA bumper sticker, and drove off. I went inside, printed the compliance form again, printed the portal screenshot, and printed the original email thread. I put everything in a folder and checked the time. It was 2 p.m. and the management office was 20 minutes away. I had 3 hours, which should have been plenty, but something about the dirt on that certified letter envelope kept bothering me. The envelope had been in my mailbox for 2 days, but the postmark was a week old and the dirt looked fresh, like someone had handled it outside recently. I took a photo of the envelope and texted it to my ally, a local news tip line staffer named Jordan, who had helped me document a billing error 6 months ago. Jordan replied within 5 minutes. "That looks staged. Check the metadata on the letter if you still have the file." I pulled the letter out of the envelope and looked at the bottom. There was no metadata printed, but the paper felt wrong, lighter than the usual HOA letterhead. I scanned it and checked the file properties. The creation date was 3 days after the letter date. Someone had backdated it. My stomach dropped. If they backdated this letter, what else had they backdated? I thought about my neighbor Marcus, who had moved out 2 years ago after a dispute with the HOA over a landscaping fine. He had told me the board claimed he owed money for a violation he swore he had already paid, but he could not prove it because the portal had lost his payment record. At the time I figured it was a clerical error, but now it felt like a pattern. I called Marcus. He picked up on the third ring and I explained what was happening. He went quiet for a second, then said, "They did the same thing to me. They sent me a notice saying I owed a fine for dead grass, and I paid it online. 2 weeks later they sent another notice saying the payment never went through and I owed double. I showed them the bank statement and they said the portal must have glitched. I ended up paying twice just to make it stop because I was trying to sell the house. I asked if he still had the documents. He said he had everything in a box in his garage and he could scan it tonight. I told him I would call him back after I dealt with the office deadline. I grabbed the folder, got in my car and drove to the management office. The drizzle had picked up and traffic was slow. I got there at 4:15 and walked into the lobby. The receptionist, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, asked how she could help. I explained I needed to deliver compliance paperwork for the cottages at Willow Glen Village Association. She nodded and said, "You can leave it in the drop box." I asked if I could get a receipt. She said the drop box does not generate receipts, but she could take it and timestamp it. I handed her the folder, and she stamped the front page with the date and time, then gave me a copy. I was about to leave when Brenda walked in through the side door, holding another clipboard. She saw me and stopped. "What are you doing here?" she asked. I held up the time-stamped copy. "Delivering the paperwork you demanded." She frowned. "You were supposed to drop it in the box." The receptionist said she could timestamp it. Brenda turned to the receptionist. "We do not accept hand-delivered documents anymore." The receptionist looked confused. "Since when?" Brenda ignored her and turned back to me. "This does not count. You need to resubmit through the portal." I stared at her. "You told me the portal was down and I had to deliver paper proof in person." She shook her head. "That was for today. Starting tomorrow, everything goes through the portal again." The receptionist spoke up. "Ma'am, I just timestamped his document. It is valid." Brenda shot her a look. "That is not your call." The receptionist did not back down. "I am following the procedure we have always used." Brenda set her clipboard on the counter with a loud slap. The board changed the procedure. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder. I said, "For the record, I complied with the directive you gave me at 2 p.m. today, which was to deliver paper proof in person by 5 p.m. I have a time-stamped receipt from the management office. Are you now saying that receipt is invalid?" Brenda noticed the phone and her face tightened. "You are not allowed to record me." I kept the phone visible. "Pennsylvania is a one-party consent state. This is legal." The receptionist stood up. "Ma'am, I think you should speak with the office manager." Brenda grabbed her clipboard and walked out without another word. The receptionist sighed and said, "She does this to everyone." I asked what she meant. She said Brenda had been running enforcement like a personal fiefdom for the past year, and the management company was fed up, but the board kept backing her. I thanked her and left. On the way to my car, I checked my phone. Jordan had sent another text. "You need to check the board minutes. If they are pulling this on multiple people, it will show up in the enforcement log." I texted back asking how to get the minutes. Jordan said they were supposed to be posted on the portal, but boards sometimes delete or edit them after the fact. I went home, logged into the portal, and pulled up the minutes archive. The most recent meeting was 3 weeks ago, and the minutes listed a vote to increase fines for repeat violations. The vote passed 4-1. I scrolled down and saw my name in the enforcement log, along with a note that I had failed to comply with the trash bin notice. The note was dated the same day I uploaded the form, which meant someone had added it after I complied. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to Jordan. Then I called Marcus and asked if he had found his documents. He said he was scanning them now and would email them in an hour. While I waited, I went through my own records and found the original trash bin email. The sender was the management company, not the board, which meant the board had taken over enforcement without notifying anyone. I checked the CC list and saw that Brenda had been copied on every message. Then I noticed something strange. The second email, the one demanding the compliance form, had a different reply to address than the first. The first email used the management company domain. The second used a personal Gmail account registered to Brenda. I forwarded both emails to Jordan with a note. Jordan replied immediately, "That is a red flag. She is bypassing the management company and issuing notices herself." Marcus emailed me his scans an hour later. I opened them and compared them to my own paperwork. The violation notices were almost identical. Same template, same wording, same demand for double payment. The only difference was the date and the type of violation. Marcus had been fined for landscaping, I had been fined for trash bins, but the structure was identical. I let her think I was cornered, because my trump card needed her to overreach. I was not ready to reveal what I had yet, because I needed her to keep digging herself deeper. The next morning, I got a knock on my door at 7 a.m. I opened it and found Brenda standing on my porch with another clipboard. She had a bundle of zip ties in her hand and was holding them like she was about to secure a campaign sign to my mailbox post. She said, "Surprise inspection. I need to document your exterior compliance." I asked if she had given me 24-hour notice. She said surprise inspections do not require notice. I asked where that rule was written. She said it was in the amended bylaws. I asked when the bylaws were amended. She said last month. I asked if the amendment was voted on. She said it was an emergency board action. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "Go ahead and inspect," I said. She walked around the front of the house, taking photos with her phone. She stopped at the mailbox and pointed at a small scuff mark on the post. "That is damage to HOA property," she said. "You are responsible for repair." I pointed out that the mailbox post was on my property line, not HOA common area. She said the mailbox itself was HOA property because it was part of a uniform cluster design. I said I would check the plat map. She said the map does not matter, the board has final say. She finished her inspection and handed me a new violation notice from the clipboard. The notice said I owed a $100 fine for failure to maintain the mailbox post. I asked when the violation occurred. She said it was ongoing. I asked when she first observed it. She said today. I asked how a scuff mark that was not there yesterday could be an ongoing violation. She said the scuff mark was obviously old and I had been ignoring it. I took a photo of the notice and asked for a copy of the amended bylaws. She said they would be posted on the portal soon. After she left, I called Jordan and explained the surprise inspection stunt. Jordan said that sounded like harassment, and I should document every interaction. I said I already was. Jordan asked if I had checked the board meeting video. I asked what video. Jordan said HOA meetings in Pennsylvania are required to be recorded if a homeowner requests it, and the recordings are supposed to be archived. I logged into the portal and searched for meeting videos. There were none. I called the management company and asked where the videos were stored. The receptionist said the board had decided not to record meetings anymore. I asked when that decision was made. She said she did not know. If you are enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more wild HOA drama and satisfying justice. I spent the next 2 days gathering everything I could find. I pulled my bank statements showing the original fine payment, printed the email threads, saved the portal screenshots, and made copies of Marcus's documents. I also filed a records request with the management company asking for all board minutes, enforcement logs, and correspondence related to my account. The request went through on a Friday, and the management company had 10 business days to respond. In the meantime, Brenda sent me another email saying the collections process had started and I needed to pay the full balance, now $220, immediately. That weekend, I got a call from a tow company dispatcher. He said he had been authorized by the Cottages at Willow Glen Village Association to impound my car for unpaid fines. I told him I was disputing the fines and they were not valid grounds for towing. He said he had the authorization in writing from the board president and he was required to proceed unless I could provide proof the fines were paid. I asked who signed the authorization. He said Brenda Clark. I told him I would meet him at my house in 20 minutes. When I got there, the tow driver was already hooking up my car. I ran over and said, "Stop, I need to show you something." He sighed and said, "Man, I just do what I am told. I do not care about HOA drama." I opened the folder and showed him the time-stamped compliance receipt and the bank statement showing the fine payment. He looked at it and shrugged. "I do not see an authorization number on here. I need the board to confirm." I called Brenda on speaker. She picked up and said, "Yes?" I said, "Your tow driver is here, and he is about to impound my car. Can you confirm that the fines he is enforcing are valid?" She said, "Absolutely. You failed to comply and you owe money." I said, "I have proof I complied and proof I paid. Can you explain why your records do not match mine?" She paused, then said, "Our records are accurate. If yours do not match, that is your problem." The tow driver heard the whole thing and shook his head. "Lady, this does not sound right." Brenda said, "Hook the car." He said, "I am not hooking anything until I see a valid authorization number." Brenda hung up. The driver unhooked my car and said, "I am not getting in the middle of this. Tell your HOA to send me a proper work order with a case number, and I will come back." He drove off, and I stood in the driveway holding my folder, shaking. The contractor from down the street walked by and said, "You okay, man?" I nodded. He said, "I have seen her do this before. She tried to get my truck towed last year because I parked in a visitor spot while I was working." I asked what happened. He said he called the cops and they told her to back off. I asked if he filed a complaint. He said he did not because he did not want to lose the contract. I thanked him and went inside. That night, Marcus called me. He said he had found something in his old paperwork. When he had paid his fine the first time, the payment had gone through a third-party processor, not the HOA's bank account. He had assumed it was normal, but now he was wondering if the board had set up a separate account to skim payments. I asked if he still had the processor name. He said it was on the receipt, and he would send me a photo. The photo came through 10 minutes later. The processor was called Community Compliance Solutions, and the account name was Willow Glen Enforcement Fund. I Googled it and found nothing. I searched the HOA bylaws and there was no mention of an enforcement fund. I texted Jordan. Jordan replied, "That smells like fraud. You need to bring this to the board." The next board meeting was scheduled for Thursday night, and homeowners were allowed to speak during the open comment period. I prepared a 3-minute statement and printed copies of every document I had. I also asked Marcus if he would come with me as a witness. He said he would. Jordan texted me the morning of the meeting and said, "Bring 2 binders. Put one on the table in front of you so everyone can see it while you present. It makes the evidence look more real." I followed the advice and bought 2 identical binders, filled them with tabbed sections, and labeled them Evidence Package A and Evidence Package B. The meeting was held in the community clubhouse at 7 p.m. About 20 homeowners showed up, plus the 5 board members. Brenda was sitting at the head table with the board president, a man in his 60s named Dale, and 3 other members I did not recognize. I signed up for public comment and sat in the back with Marcus. The meeting started with routine business, budget updates, landscaping contract renewal, and a vote to approve new pool rules. Then Dale opened the floor for public comment. I was third on the list. When my turn came, I walked to the front and set Evidence Package A on the table in front of me. I placed Evidence Package B on the chair beside me. I introduced myself and said I was here to address a billing discrepancy and request an audit of the enforcement process. Brenda immediately interrupted. "This is not the time for personal disputes." Dale told her to let me finish. I continued. I said I had been billed twice for the same violation. I had proof of compliance, and I had discovered that a similar incident had occurred with another homeowner 2 years ago. I held up the certified letter envelope with the dirt-smudged corners and said, "This envelope was backdated. I have metadata proving the letter was created after the date printed on it." Brenda stood up. "That is a lie. I printed that letter myself and mailed it on the correct date." I opened the binder and pulled out the metadata printout. I held it up so everyone could see. The creation date is 3 days after the letter date. Unless you have a time machine, this was backdated. Dale leaned forward. "Brenda, did you create this letter?" She hesitated. "I used a template. The date might have auto-filled wrong." I said, "A template error does not explain why the portal shows I complied before the letter was mailed, or why I was billed twice, or why a third-party payment processor is collecting fines under an account that does not exist in the HOA bylaws." The room went silent. Dale asked what I was talking about. I pulled out Marcus's payment receipt and explained the Community Compliance Solutions account. Dale looked at Brenda. "Do you know anything about this?" She said, "That was a temporary measure approved by the board last year for efficiency." Dale said, "I do not remember approving that." Another board member, a woman in her 40s, said, "Neither do I." Brenda said, "It was an email vote." Dale said, "Show me the email." Brenda said she would have to check her records. I took a breath and said, "I have one more thing." I pulled out a printed copy of the board minutes from the meeting 3 weeks ago. The minutes list a vote to increase fines for repeat violations. The vote passed 4-1. I pulled out my phone and opened a video file. This is a recording of that meeting. I recorded it myself from the back of the room. I hit play. The audio was clear. Dale had called for a vote, and 3 board members had voted yes, 1 had voted no, and 1 had abstained. The vote should have been 3-1 with 1 abstention, not 4-1. Someone had altered the minutes. Dale looked at Brenda. "Did you write these minutes?" She said yes. "Did you alter the vote count?" She said, "I may have made a clerical error." I said, "This is not a clerical error. This is a pattern. You backdated a letter, you set up an unauthorized payment account, you altered meeting minutes, and you tried to collect fines I had already paid." Another homeowner stood up and said, "She did the same thing to me last year. I paid a landscaping fine and she tried to bill me again." A third homeowner said, "She threatened to tow my car for parking in my own driveway." Dale slammed the gavel. "Brenda, you are out of order. Sit down." She sat, her face red. Dale said, "We are going to take a 10-minute recess, and then we are coming back to vote on a motion." He looked at me. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention." During the recess, Brenda tried to leave, but Dale stopped her. "You are not going anywhere until we resolve this." When the meeting resumed, Dale read a motion to suspend Brenda from all enforcement duties pending a management audit that exposes the pattern. The motion passed unanimously. Dale then read a second motion requiring the HOA to publish standards and timelines to all homeowners and to document all enforcement actions in the public minutes going forward. That motion also passed. I sat down, and Marcus leaned over and whispered, "You did it." I nodded, but I was not done. I still had the trump card, and I was waiting for the right moment. Brenda stood up and said, "I am resigning from the board effective immediately." Dale said, "We accept your resignation, but you are still required to cooperate with the audit." She grabbed her bag and walked toward the door. I stood up and said, "One more thing." She stopped. I said, "I have a police incident number from a prior HOA trespass attempt that shows a pattern. Last year, you filed a false towing authorization for a homeowner who was not in violation. The police issued an incident report documenting your actions as potential fraud. I filed a records request this morning, and I received the report this afternoon." I held up a printed copy. "This proves you have done this before." Brenda turned around, her face twisted. "You are lying." I said, "The incident number is here. You can verify it with the police department." Dale said, "Brenda, is this true?" She did not answer. Dale said, "We are referring this to legal counsel. The meeting is adjourned." Brenda walked out, and the room erupted in conversation. Marcus shook my hand and said, "That was incredible." Over the next 2 weeks, the audit revealed that Brenda had been collecting fines through the unauthorized account and pocketing a portion of the money. She had altered at least 6 sets of meeting minutes over the past year, and she had issued false violation notices to 9 homeowners. The management company was fired, and the board hired an interim manager who froze all enforcement actions until the audit was complete. Brenda's own selective enforcement got documented in the minutes, and every homeowner affected by her scheme was refunded in full. The board also voted to implement a new policy requiring all enforcement actions to be reviewed by the full board before any fines could be issued. A month later, I got an email from Dale apologizing for the chaos and thanking me for speaking up. He said the board was working with legal counsel to determine if criminal charges were appropriate. I forwarded the email to Jordan, who wrote a follow-up story about HOA fraud for the local news tip line. The story included interviews with Marcus and 2 other affected homeowners, and it prompted the county to launch a review of HOA governance practices across the region. Brenda never responded to any of the audit findings, and she moved out of the neighborhood 3 months later. I kept the 2 binders on my shelf as a reminder. Every time I see them, I think about how close I came to paying twice for something I had already resolved, and how many other people might still be stuck in the same trap. The cottages at Willow Glen Village Association is quieter now, and the new interim manager has been responsive and transparent. The board published a full enforcement standards document and sent it to every homeowner, and they implemented a 30-day appeal window for all violations. I still check the portal every week to make sure my account is clear, and I still save every email, receipt, and screenshot, just in case. Marcus and I stay in touch, and he told me he is considering moving back to the area now that the board has changed. The contractor who pretended not to listen during that first driveway confrontation stopped by my house last month and said he heard what I did at the meeting. He said he wished he had spoken up when Brenda came after him, and he thanked me for holding the line. I told him I was just tired of being pushed around, and sometimes you have to fight back with paperwork instead of anger. I hope your week goes smoothly.